Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Mr. Bolton.
Is that a Rico?
It's Rico, yes.
Oh, I see.
You wanted to check if you're on the right platform, sir.
Now I wanted to check if everyone's awake, man.
On this graveyard shift.
No. You see, this parliament can't even pass a budget. No, not pass a budget, table a budget.
Table a budget. Yeah.
No. Anyway, I'll wait till 3 o'clock, Rico. I'll see you then.
Morning, members. Good afternoon, members. We're just waiting for the chair to log on.
Good morning, honorable members.
Morning, afternoon, chair.
Good afternoon,
Okay,
Chair.
let me say that the meeting is officially open. Yeah, this thing of 2 o'clock is not familiar to us, but nevertheless, as long as the meeting is going to continue, I wish to welcome everybody in the meeting. I also wish to welcome our presenters and our backup staff, that is the officials. I am not sure who else is in the meeting, whether the minister and the deputy are in the meeting. I haven't seen them.
I saw the minister and the deputy minister, chair, on the platform.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for informing me about that. I also wish to welcome my minister and my deputy minister in the meeting. We really appreciate their presence and their effort to try to be in our meetings so that we can be able to advise and also inform one another if it is possible. I don't want to prolong time. I know for a fact that we've got 2 presenters today, which we must give ourselves even time to interact with them. So I will request the secretary to flight the agenda. Otherwise, knowing that today it's supposed to be a big day in South Africa, we've heard that the G20 is just on our way, and we wish them all the best and the happiest time in South Africa, those countries that will visit us. But we still have to say and continue by saying no one will bully us as South Africa. But we want people to work with us and also assist one another if necessary. So with those few words, the meeting, I really repeat, it's officially opened. There is the agenda. Ariko, can you assist us? It's
Thank you,
clear.
chair.
Lead us.
Oh, yeah, no. So first, it's the briefing by the DMRE on the impact of the State of the Nation address on the activities of the Department of Electricity and Energy and its respective entities. Then also an update by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy on the legislative program specifically relating to electricity and energy and possible timeframes thereof relating to the tabling to Parliament. And then we'll also consider and adopt the revised committee first term program, chair, and then consideration and adoption of outstanding minutes. Those are the agenda items, chair. Thanks, chair.
Thank you, Secretary. Can I check whether the honorable members are agreeing with the proposed agenda that Ariko has tabled? In terms of saying adopting, okay, Fasia, Honorable Fasia.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm happy to move for the adoption of the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much, Honorable Fasia. And then any other person who seconds the adoption? Oh, Honorable Thring, thank you very much, is also seconding the proposed agenda. Okay, then if it is the case, let's get straight to
Recording
the minister.
in progress.
if he is willing to do the, I will say, the political input in terms of this presentation that we're going to get. Over to you, Minister.
Oh, thank you very much,
Chair.
Chair.
My apologies, Chair.
Oh.
Chair, my apologies. Just before the minister comes, I've got my hand raised.
Okay. Honorable
Chair-
King, I'm sorry, I didn't notice it.
Chair, just on apologies. I unfortunately have another meeting that starts at 4 o'clock. So if this meeting overruns, I unfortunately going to have to leave just a few minutes before 4.
Okay, Honorable, we don't have a problem, hoping that by that time we'll be done. But if it is the case, as you have said, you'll just recuse yourself on that time. And any other apology? None.
No,
Thank
yeah,
you.
Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson, thank you very much. It's
Carry on, Secretary, before you.
Chair, it's Member Paulson here.
All right, Honorable Paulson.
Chair, I also have another meeting at 4 o'clock, so we're going to carry on for too long, past 4, and then I'm going to have to leave.
Your apologies are accepted.
Thank you very much,
We-
Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Rico, yeah. Chair, we've also received an apology from Mr. Mbata, who has a bereavement in the family, Chair. So those are the other apology. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Secretary. Let's just pass our condolences to Honorable Mbata. We hope that God will strengthen them during their difficult time. Thank you very much for that. And we all understand that this is not a day of our meetings, but because of the circumstances which were unforeseen, we attended this EU conference, which was well attended by us because we were a full delegation. So we had to shift the meeting from yesterday to today because we didn't want to handicap the quorum of the portfolio committee. Thank you for those announcements and also apologies. Honorable Dr. Sputla Ramakhupa, over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair Mbana, and good day to members of the Portfolio Committee and members of the Secretariat. Chair, I suggest that I give my political contribution in the course of responding, noting that colleagues have got time constraints. So with your permission, I'll invite the team to share with you. It's 2 presentations. The one has to do with how we are able to unpack the SONA, its implications on the work that we're doing, and how we propose to respond to those commitments in the SONA. And the other one has to do with the legislative program. So with your permission, Chair, I'm going to ask that you allow my colleagues to do the presentation, and then we'll come back when the members are asking questions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. That's not a train smash. We know that at least during the course of questions and also inputs, you just get in, and the Deputy Minister will also do the same. Thanks ever so much. Let's go straight to the presentation. As we have agreed that all the presentation will be done, that is the 2 of them, and then we note all what we think that we need to interact with. Thank you ever so much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good afternoon to yourself and members of the committee, Minister, Deputy Minister, and colleagues. My name is Subesh Pillay. I'm presenting in this instance as the Interim Director General for the Department of Energy and Electricity. Chair, with your permission, I will deal with the first presentation, and then I'll request my colleague Didichi Nzimande to deal with the second element around the legislative program. We can proceed with the slides, please. Chairperson, members, so this is just an outline of the presentation. We can move to the next slide. Chair, I think it's important to locate the SONA commitments against the codification of what the department has since its inception last year, and the work that we've been doing around how we locate ourselves in the energy sector, to outline the 5 strategic priority areas that will underpin the work of the department in the sector for the next 5 years. So the first one has got to do with achieving universal access, and the 4 components to that access. Well, firstly, it's access. So there has to be energy available, and then, of course, the affordability. So it's one thing that we provide the energy, but if that energy can't reach people as a result of affordability, then we've not resolved the social problem we're seeking to address. And then, of course, when people do get electricity, the quality of that supply is consistent with our commitment. Then the second area, Chair, is around the attainment of sovereign and regional energy security. And here we locate both elements. So it's dealing with the domestic or sovereign energy security, but we also locate that in the context of the continent, and the need to understand that our energy security is intertwined with the rest of the continent. So the first area is to, of course, defend Eskom's share of the generation capacity. We do know that the restructuring of the sector has introduced other players in the generation space, but Eskom continues to carry the weight of that responsibility, at least on the generation side, and increasingly that it would diversify its offering in terms of the generation mix. Then there are 3 catalytic programs that will underpin our work. One is around the green hydrogen sector broadly, and then there's what we term broadly as resetting the role and place of nuclear. So there's nuclear in terms of an energy source, but there's also the broader nuclear applications that straddles beyond nuclear and its energy, its role in the energy sector, but nuclear as a contributor to broader fields, including in health and agriculture. And then, of course, the critical elements of the transmission network. Then in terms of the generation work that we're doing, we have to be able to transport or transmit that energy. And there's a focus on the expansion and modernization of the transmission infrastructure. And then, Chair, the following 3 objectives underpin our overall approach. And if you look at the 3, in fact, the 5 in its totality, you can immediately draw them back to the 3 strategic priorities outlined in the MTDP. So the first of the 3 is the driving industrialization and leading innovation. Of course, the massive capital work around the energy infrastructure that we will deploy over the next 5 years and into the period beyond will present a pristine opportunity to redefine the structure of our economy in terms of how we use that build program to foster an industrial-led growth path that is underpinned by localization and innovation. So in other words, not just industrialization, but how we use our domestic endowments to grow our economy and build an inclusive economy as we unpack and deploy this energy infrastructure, and then to qualitatively transform our energy demographics and the focus, of course, on the role of women and youth in the ownership patterns and of the infrastructure that we're providing. Increasingly, that we create the environment and the opportunities for young people and women to play a dominant role in that deployment. And the third area, and it's linked to the regional energy security, and that is to assert our role as a country, but both in the context of the global energy, the continental and global energy leadership space. So South Africa, whether you apply yourself to the nuclear question or any other aspect of our work that we're doing in the energy space, we continue to be a leader, and that is a position that we want to consolidate and take into the future. So, Chair, those are the 5 priority areas. If I can ask you to move to the next slide. So the next 3 slides, Chair, deals with just the 5 areas that emerged directly out of the State of the Nation address. The first area, of course, is reduce the severity and frequency of load shedding. This is directly out of the Energy Action Plan. We do know that over the past 12 months at least, we've experienced a considerable reduction, both in the intensity and frequency of load shedding. Bar for 2 days in January, we've experienced a 10-month period of uninterrupted power supply. And we continue to invest in the power system so that we continue to provide a steady supply of electricity. Then on the generation side, in addition to the work of strengthening the existing Eskom fleet, there are several projects. I share with your permission, I won't go into the detail, but it's spelled out in the slide there. That is seeks to augment the existing generation capacity. And then the last 2 bullet points is the work that we're doing on the finalization of the IRP. This work is nearing completion and will be tabled in Cabinet before Minister publishes the IRP this year or early this year. And then we have now initiated work to develop the integrated energy plan. I think the acknowledgement that we make is that ordinarily the IEP would have been the broader frame that within which the IRP locates itself. But I mean, historically, we've had a focus on the IRP and the gas master plan separately, and so now we initiating that work to essentially create the strategic thrust of our energy plan, codified in the integrated energy plan. Chair, I will not spend too much time on the actions going forward, because as you will see in the next couple of slides, we unpack this work in a bit more detail. So with your permission, I'll deal with the actions going forward in the latter slides. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So the second thematic area in SONA has got to do with the mobilization of private capital for investments in the transmission network. And yeah, we've over the period of the past year, we've done considerable work, and that work will now move into a much higher gear in terms of how we're provisioning for transmission infrastructure. The minister will, in the next couple of weeks, release what we call in the transmission regulations. So these are the regulations published under the amended ERA Act, and that will codify how the rollout of transmission infrastructure, the procurement of transmission infrastructure will take shape. We have issued an RFI late in 2024. That RFI is really helping us understand ahead of releasing the RFP to market later in the year what boxes to tick to ensure that when that RFP is issued to market, it is one that will meet with a responsive or responses to the provision of transmission infrastructure. And then Minister will again, consistent with Section 34 of the revised ERA, and just to perhaps make the point here that ERA now introduces the Section 34 determination specifically for transmission. The previous version of ERA only provided for a determination for generation. And that's why now we will issue that section 34 for transmission infrastructure, and that is essentially why the regulations are necessary as well. And then on the development of a competitive electricity market, again emanating out of the requirements of the amended ERA, we will publish maybe just to make the point firstly that the Act was assented to late last year, and the effective date was determined as 1 January. So the amended ERA is now in full implementation power for one definition, which has got to do with the definition of reticulation. The rest of the Act is now Amendment Act is now in full effect. And of course, that means that we have to now move towards the setting up of a competitive market and move as it provides for an independent transmission systems operator. Okay, we can move to the next slide. Then around the just energy transition. So there's towards the tail end of last year, the ministry working with Eskom undertook a socio-economic impact of the closure of coal power stations. So not just the immediate closure of the power stations, but an attempt to understand the full economic impact in coal communities. And that study was socialized through Cabinet. There was an engagement with MP, in this instance refers to the Mpumalanga provincial government, and the unions involved in the Eskom generation space. The next set of work, the next area of work emanating out of that impact analysis is to now develop the response plan to how we will manage the closure in terms of the socio-economic impacts. We do know from the experience, at least of Komati, that the ability to ensure the transition happens and the readiness to create an economy that responds to the absorption of what the closure of plants will translate into has to precede. So we have to ready the economy to begin to absorb the numbers of people who would otherwise no longer be employed in the generation space. So over and above the renewable space, we're looking at other industrial opportunities, particularly in the coal communities as a replacement for those economic activities. And the fourth area that SONA addresses itself to is the upscaling of renewables, and in particular wind and solar. Currently, as we speak, there is about just over 7,000 megawatts of renewable energy feeding into the grid, and the intention, of course, is to increase that installment, focusing on wind and solar, but a combination of battery storage, so that some of the challenges of intermittency and connection into the transmission grid is addressed. We can move to the next slide, please. Okay, Chair, this just outlines the alignment of the MTDP to the 5 priority areas. So I'll not spend too much time on this slide. If you can move to the next slide. Okay. So, Chair, the next set of slides now begins to take from the SONA commitments, ties it down to the 3 priority areas in the MTDP, and it gives expression in terms of the 5 strategic priority areas that the department would have outlined. Chair, I must make the qualification here that these areas that we've outlined, I think there were 10 sets of focus areas of work, is essentially work in progress. So in terms of the national planning framework, we will, as a department, finalize APPs, of course, aligned to the fiscal allocations by the end of, at least by March of this year. And then in terms of the parliamentary process, then we would be able to table formally the approved APP of the department, which will then become the basis of monitoring and evaluation and oversight by the committee. The next set of intervention is the framing of how the 5 strategic priorities will unfold. The first area has got to do with the continued structural reforms in the energy sector. We know that the NTCSA has been created. There's work now focusing on the energy, the EDI, electricity distribution industry, and the EDI roadmap. There's work, as I say, linked to the requirements under ERA now to establish South African wholesale electricity markets. And then, of course, in terms of the NTCSA, the next areas of work has got to do with moving towards the independent TSO within the 5 years, the 5-year horizon set out in the in ERA. Can move to the next slide. So then the second area is around strengthening the generation capacity. So firstly, the focus on the existing coal fleet. The repurposing of the 3 power stations, Fruitflake, Camden, and Hendrina. Just want to point out, Chair and members, that there's a typo there. That 2023 is intended to read 2030. Apologies for that. But obviously that work is now continuing to repurpose the 3 power stations by that 2030 horizon in terms of the IRP, at least the draft IRP. From that period onwards, 2028 up to 2030, you begin to see a shift towards gas, which is the third area, as a transitional fuel source to address baseload capacity. Of course, there's on the gas side, there's work underway to address the gas supply shortages that's expected as a result of the now current supply from Mozambique reaching its natural, at the end of its natural lifespan. We do know that the challenges in the southern part of Mozambique and the development of those fields will not come through to coincide with the current supply lines, and so there is work to look at securing a steady supply of gas, LNG. The point being that the energy sector will provide a basis for sufficient demand on the gas side to ensure that the investments required on landing that gas at the ports is viable. So in terms of the IRP, there's 5,000 megawatts of gas which will come on stream, and there's work that is firstly at the level of Eskom, 2,500 megawatts on new gas capacity, and then of course the repurposing of the current peakers from diesel turbines to gas turbines. And then the fourth area of work has got to do with the green hydrogen, so maximizing our coastal positioning to position South Africa as a global supplier of green hydrogen and its derivatives to European and Asian markets. And the interventions required there, of course, is the upgrading of the ports infrastructure in ports of Nuga, Kucha, Saldanha, essentially tying up the three capes as the anchor of the work that we're doing in the green hydrogen space. The next slide, please. Then, Chair, on the universal access, there's work that we're currently finalizing to repurpose the current Integrated National Electrification Program grant, or INEP grant, if you like, to ensure that we're able to truncate the delivery of universal access by the end of the current term, the current administration, so by 2030. That work will result in about 1.6 million new connections. We say 97% connection because, of course, household connections is a moving target as we develop. There'll continue to be households that need to be connected to the grid. 97% is a universal definition is borrowed from a universal definition of universal access. That work will address both, will focus on both grid tied connections, but also on non-grid applications. So if you look at where the current deficits of new connections, largely remote areas, largely areas where the backbone distribution and transmission infrastructure will not reach. And so the focus, therefore, is on localized off-grid solutions to ensure that we meet that requirement for the 1.6 million households. And then, Chair, on the transmission expansion, I think we've dealt with this. On the transmission, the first phase of the pilot line that will essentially address the transmission deficits in the Cape provinces, and through an integrated ITP option, integrated transmission projects option, in the context of the transmission development plan. We can move to the next slide, please. Then, Chair, the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan will serve in the next, I think, in the next cabinet meeting, and thereafter be published. The target there is to facilitate through the Renewable Energy Master Plan upwards of 15 billion rand of new investment in renewable energy projects, including in battery energy storage projects by 20, and the sum total of that is, of course, to increase the installment of renewable energy in the total mix of our energy mix, consistent with what would be the revised IRP. And then the 8 priority areas got to do with the strategic outcome around the nuclear environment. So it's leveraging our nuclear capability in 2 respects. One, of course, is in the nuclear build program. So the 2,500 remains the target for the build program. Of course, this build program will not realize in the current administration, given the value chain of nuclear procurement. But what we will certainly undertake in the current administration is the readiness to, at the very least, by the end of the term, to have issued to market the RFP for that nuclear installment. And then the second area is to reposition South Africa to leverage our latent nuclear expertise to drive industrialization. Minister will publish a master plan, a nuclear sector master plan, and an implementation and implementation framework. Part of that will be to initiate the second generation of the multipurpose reactor, which is currently at Pelindaba. The multipurpose reactor is a test reactor for nuclear technology outside of energy, and so that's an important capability that we must hold on to if South Africa is going to continue to play the dominant role it currently occupies in the nuclear space, and in particular in the non-energy nuclear applications. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah, then on to the issues around the municipal electricity business, so if you like, the distribution industry. So here there's the broader work around the restructuring of the industry, the electricity distribution industry. But of course, we do know that municipalities across the country continues to limp insofar as the energy business undertakings are concerned. We've developed a intervention program which will essentially begin to ensure that we bring stability to the distribution sector, particularly to support municipalities, and that will then lay the basis for reinvestment in the distribution infrastructure. Now, the elements of this work that will deal with the current municipal debt, we do know that municipalities owe Eskom in the order of about 100 billion rand currently on their bulk accounts, and municipalities themselves are owed in the order of 380 billion rand. These are from their retail consumers. So it's important that we address the revenue security issues. The program that we've developed under a scheme that's called the Active Partnering Arrangement. It's a scheme that Eskom will jointly implement with the department to support municipalities, essentially to stabilize in the immediate period. And then, of course, as in the short-term period and in the medium-term period, to lay the basis for that for reinvestments in the distribution infrastructure. And then the 10th and final area, is around Eskom, on the governance and viability side of Eskom. And they indicate the intervention there rather is to lead the turnaround, consolidate the turnaround of Eskom's operational performance, so that Eskom can gradually or steadily move towards an improved investment grade and enhanced liquidity position, and that it is able, on the strength of its own balance sheet, outside of any sovereign guarantees or any sovereign fiscal support, to both discharge its immediate responsibilities, but also through its capital program, then that it is able to ensure that it invests in both the generation capacity, its distribution capacity, and then, of course, on the transmission side, with the ultimate objective that we reposition Eskom as a financially sound and going concern. Chair, then the next, so that concludes, Chairperson, the first part of the presentation around the alignment of the ministry's contribution to the SONA outcomes. The next presentation, Chair, with your permission, if I may ask
DG. You can proceed. Yes, you can proceed.
Thanks, Chair. If I can request then the division's mandate to deal with the legislative program for the 5 years. Thank you very much, Chair.
Sorry,
Okay.
DG. Sorry, Chair. Sorry, DG. Do I
Yes.
flag the other presentation, DG?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Yes, definitely. You have to, Secretary.
Thank you, DG. Honorable Chair, honorable members, Honorable Minister and DM, colleagues, good afternoon. My name is Dawson Zimande. I will run through the slides on the legislative program. If we can please move to the next slide. So, Chair, this is basically the presentation outlined. I will not get into details with it, save to say that these bills are what we have in front of us right now for this current financial year. And in good time, once the APPs are finalized, we will be presenting an updated version which indicates one or two other areas that we're going to be focusing on insofar as the legislation is concerned. If we can move to the next slide, please. So the first bill that I will talk to that we are currently working on is the Gas Amendment Bill. And what we are saying on this slide is, firstly, by way of background, is when this law came into effect. And it's really a piece of legislation that was designed to establish a national regulatory framework for piped gas in South Africa, because there was none at the time. And the amendments to this act were submitted earlier on to Parliament in 2022. And we thought we would mention this in case honorable members do pick it up in parliamentary documents and then ask what happened. We thought we would highlight this and sort of explain the reasons for that withdrawal, because we then later withdrew the bill from Parliament for further processing. And this was mainly due to other considerations, and new developments and technological changes that were coming in the sector, and we thought it would be neater and cleaner if we pull the bill back and update it so that it's in keeping with the developments in the market. Strategic intent, again, I've spoken to that, having a clear framework for pipe gas industry in the country. And at a high level, just to talk to the objectives with this bill. Firstly, we consider this piece of legislation as one of the key enablers to resolving the energy trilemma in the country. It's one of the biggest enablers that we believe the economy cannot do without, but also to look at socioeconomic and environmental considerations in the piped gas space, facilitate gas infrastructure development and create an enabling environment for investments to come into this space, as well as provide for cooperation between private and public sector players. And lastly, there is an aspect in the bill that talks to strengthening enforcement and improving compliance in the sector. We want to ensure that as we develop gas infrastructure, and particularly in relation to pipelines, there is a proper law enforcement as well as compliance from the players in the industry. Chair, we took an approach to speak to these at a high level, in not getting into the finer details and talking through the clauses in the bill, with the understanding that in good time we will be presenting the bill in its fullness to Parliament once it's been submitted for tabling by Minister. And maybe process-wise and current status, this bill was gazetted for comments early last year, and it went through redrafting and resubmission to the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor for certification, following the redrafting that took into account public comments that we would have received. And then it progressed to NEDLAC, and that NEDLAC consultation again came from, it was specified in the legal opinion that was given to us by the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, to say it does need to go through the NEDLAC process, and that process has since been concluded, and we've prepared this for presentation. Sorry about that, Chair. By the time we submitted the presentation, the cluster meeting was set down to sit yesterday, hence you see that date. and it is planned for submission to Parliament at the end of Q4 in this current financial year. So by end of March, this bill would have gone to a cabinet, and then minister requesting cabinet to approve for minister to submit it to Parliament. If we can move to the next slide, please. The next bill that we are currently working on is the Radioactive Waste Fund Management Bill. And this bill is designed to ensure that we establish a dedicated fund that would look into the management of long-term radioactive waste storage facilities. And in terms of NEMA, it's more the enforcement of the polluter pays principle. Currently, the state does not have a facility or a financial instrument to protect South Africa should a nuclear installation operator not comply or meet their disposal obligations. And this bill is geared to remedy that and provide for that framework. And by way of background, it does emanate from the policy, which specifies that there must be an act of parliament that would establish the fund. Hence, we are then establishing the fund. Again, on the background, this bill went out for public comments in 2022. Why has it delayed this long? It has delayed because we processed it, took it all the way to cabinet at the time, and cabinet was not in support of establishing the fund as an entity, as a standalone entity. And we were given homework to look at options as to how we could structure this. And the option that we then tabled at the time was an option similar to what is happening in the mining industry, where the DMRE has a trust fund into which mining companies do deposit money for rehabilitation. In case they are liquidated or they disappear, then the state would have funds to remedy the environmental footprint that they would have left behind. But upon continuous engagements and consultations with the state law advisor on that, the state law advisor was not in support of the trust model, and they took us back to establishing it as an entity. Hence, we are where we are today. Continuous consultations with OFLA have put us in a place where, even though they have not given us the final tagging, but in our consultations, they've indicated this is a Section 77 bill, which is a money bill, and therefore there is a need for National Treasury to come on board and design a money bill to support this bill. Those consultations are at an advanced stage with National Treasury, and we are almost at the tail end. As soon as Treasury is done with their consultation processes, we will then be ready to progress. So we are targeting the date end of financial year 2025-26 for this bill to go through to Parliament. Next slide, please. Nuclear Energy Act. This we've started with the background work, but it will definitely be in the 25-26 strategic plan of the department. And the idea is to update the law to align with international best practice and our own international commitments as a country, as well as to ensure that we are in alignment with the recent developments in the nuclear market. And this really takes into account best practice and standards, but also from time to time, particularly on the global stage, there are commitments that we take on as a country, which we have to ensure that we align our laws with. But also, since this law establishes NECSA over the years in their research have advanced and developed new technologies, and those technologies are not necessarily catered for in this law. That is why we are then updating the legislation to cater for those. For example, in the power generation space, SMRs are coming on strong, and we want to make sure that the legislation supports that, and we enable NECSA to do what they need to do in regards to small modular reactors for power generation purposes. Time-wise, we've submitted the bill to the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor, and it's planned for publishing for public comments by the 30th of June this year, and slated for submission to Parliament at the end of the next financial year. If we can go to the next slide, please. And I think this is the last slide before the concluding remarks slide, and it talks to the electricity pricing policy. The purpose with the policy is to align it with the broader electricity market reforms. DG spoke earlier on to the fact that the Electricity Regulation Act has been amended to create an open market in the electricity system in South Africa, and therefore we had to align the policy, because currently the policy was designed such that it talks more to a vertically integrated electricity market where NERSA would be setting tariffs in the main for Eskom and not so much for IPPs. But now with the open market, there has to be an instrument that talks to that, and this is the one instrument. Just at a high level, the policy is designed such that it captures clear principles. And these principles talk to how the market should operate without necessarily going into detail, because then NERSA has a role to play in terms of giving specificities with regards to those principles. But importantly, the policy also pronounces on policy positions, about 26 policy positions. And those policy positions are geared towards striking this balance between ensuring that ordinary South Africans have access to affordable electricity, while businesses have access to electricity whose tariffs are cost reflective. So strike that balancing act between the two areas of society, as it were. And really, these principles talk to pricing transparency. It also outlines the role of the transmission systems operator, the role of NERSA, what is to be done in relation to wheeling, net billing, and the cost of supply. And importantly, it also pronounces on free basic electricity. I know that we've received a lot of questions around electricity might be expensive for the ordinary user going forward. This policy is geared towards protecting the ordinary South Africans against unfair prices, but also to ensure that there still is provision for a free basic electricity. Timeline-wise, the policy has gone through the NEDLAC process, and we've concluded the consultations in NEDLAC, and it is scheduled for presentation by May to the cluster, and eventually to cabinet. And I know we've put the end of 25-26. It's going to be much earlier than that, because we understand the importance of the policy, given the fact that the amended Electricity Regulation Act is now in force, as indicated by Acting DG earlier on. Next slide, please. Chair, the next slide is really a slide that talks to the conclusions or the concluding statements. And we really are saying that these reviews are necessary, particularly given the global shifts in the energy markets across all energy forms. Whether you're talking nuclear, you're talking other forms of energy, there are shifts, and we need to ensure that as a country we keep in line with those global shifts. Also, harmonization of policies with other legislation becomes an ongoing exercise, given these moving tectonics in the electricity, or rather even energy, broader energy space, and importantly, alignment with domestic reforms is a definite necessity to support the economy of the country. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, DG.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, I see a hand immediately from Honorable Nazir. And I was about to say thanks ever so much for the presentation. And also we really appreciate it. Yeah, I understand that really as South Africa, we are looking forward for strategic and also ways and means of having different ways to get an electricity, the one that is affordable to our communities and to ourselves. So thanks ever so much for the presentations. DG, is there anything that you would like to add?
Chair, sorry for that. No, I think that completes our the presentation. Thank you very much, Chairperson, members, and Minister and Deputy Minister.
Okay. All right. Then maybe, yeah, if it is the case, we know that DM and also Minister, they will be able to assist when there is questioning time and also some sort of an additions. But if they want to do it now, they are free to do it. Let me note the hands. Honorable Nazir. And yeah, okay. There are the hands coming up. The first one was Honorable Paulson.
Thank you, Chair.
Followed by Honorable Milam and Honorable Trinh. I've noted also the hand of Honorable Ngosi. Okay, shoot.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. It's Nazir Paulson, Member of Parliament for the Economic Freedom Fighters. Good afternoon, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, and the Department. Good afternoon, colleagues. Chairperson, the gas bill also speaks to the promotion of broad-based Black economic empowerment, and that is also something that came out of SONA. So I would like to know, how will the industrial growth path prioritize and ensure inclusion of the empowerment of women and youth, but in a broad-based Black economic empowerment sense, not where we have the same Black role players who are predominantly men having a stake in the industrial growth path of electricity, whether it's generation or distribution. And then also the integrated resource plan. According to that plan, we are going to decommission over 10,000 megawatts of coal-fired power plants by 2030. And it also says that coal-fired power stations are going to be decommissioned and repurposed in South Africa as part of a transition to renewable energy. So I'd like to know, are we going to be replacing coal-fired power plants, the physical power plant, and there where it's stationed, coal-fired power plant? Are we going to convert those into gas-fired power plants, or are we building new fire plants altogether? Will we be building it on the same site as the old coal power station? Or are we going to have new sites? Because I recall that a coal-powered power station needed to be on a railway line in order to receive the necessary coal. So does that still hold true for gas-fired power plants? And then also, Mr. Pillay mentioned the Capes as being essential for our gas master plan, but the Virginia gas project in Welkom, one of the towns there in the Free State, we have the liquefied helium produced at the Virginia gas project, which is a renewable energy plant, and it's attracted substantial investment so far, and a further 20 billion rands worth of investment. So what role does liquefied helium play in our proposed energy mix? And also, what role does the Virginia gas project play in our energy mix, our proposed energy mix? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Person. Honorable Milo.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, just a couple of quick questions, and thank you to the presenters, and welcome, Mr. Pillay, in your new role as Acting Director General of the new department. My question firstly relates to the Integrated Energy Plan. Obviously, this is, as you indicated, a high-level policy document that covers both the IRP and the gas master plan. My question is, where is the liquid fuels master plan that is supposed to be a component of this plan, and what are your projections on having that ready in time to incorporate in the IEP? That's the first question. The second is with regard to the nuclear ambitions of the department. First of all, I think it's a little bit premature, given that the IRP has not yet been gazetted and concluded, to assume that we are going to proceed with this at a rapid pace. However, be that as it may, and assuming that we're working under IRP 2019, the exact wording of I can't remember what it was called. It wasn't definition. Determination 8 was to proceed with the preparations for nuclear to the amount of 2,500 megawatts at a pace and scale the country can afford. What I'm seeing here is an ambition to move to new nuclear in one lump sum of 2,500 megawatts. There's no pace and scale, and there's no preparatory work being included in that. So my question is, how are you including pace and scale in what you're doing, and what is the preparatory work that you are undertaking to make this a reality? Then lastly, with regard to the legislative program of the department, and I'm very pleased to see that you're bringing it to us early, which is something that always makes Parliament quite happy. But I am concerned that the gas amendment bill, which was withdrawn in 2022, that there hasn't been as much consultation up front about this new amendment and this new version of the gas amendment bill as there was the first time round. Can I get some indication as to what public participation the department has undertaken on the amendments to the gas amendment bill subsequent to its withdrawal in the last round? Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'm finished.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Person.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just a few questions, perhaps first a comment from my side and then some questions. I think that with regards to our response to the impact of SONA on activities to the Department of Electricity and Energy, when looking at the Ministry's strategic priorities, I think it must be acknowledged that Eskom over the last few years, 8 to 10 years, has essentially failed in executing these strategic priorities, and they failed the South African economy and South Africans in general, particularly when looking at the achieving of universal availability and affordability. Understanding that during the apartheid era, availability, particularly to the large black sector of our population, there was very little availability of energy, and that has been addressed. And I think one needs to acknowledge that. But the challenge that we now have and I think that Mr. Patel did seem to make reference to that, is the challenge also of affordability. And many South Africans right now are just not going to be able to afford electricity. And so with the tariffs increasing, what is happening is we have these tariff levels crowding out citizens purely because it is no longer affordable. So I think that the department has to take into consideration the aspect of one of its key priorities, and that being affordability. Then, Chair, just to my questions, about 3 or 4 questions. The first is with regards to slide 9, first and second, the repurposing coal-fired power stations. To some extent, covered by Honorable Paulson in terms of what will this actually look like, because we don't want to have a repetition of what took place when we closed down one of our most productive coal-fired power stations with devastating socio-economic impacts on the community. But the second aspect to this is why are we actually looking at closing down these particular power stations? And I know that some of them actually have life end dates. And why aren't we looking at doing what China, India, Bangladesh, amongst other countries are actually doing? They are continuing to build coal-fired power stations. They have coal. India is one of the largest coal producers within the world, and they are using that natural resource. So why are we not doing that in tandem with producing and developing our green energy sector? So I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at green energy. What I'm saying is, why are we looking at shutting down our coal-fired power stations when we have this huge natural resource, which gives us both a comparative and a competitive advantage? Then also on slide 9, just looking at the move from diesel to gas, what is the differential cost? I'm assuming that it's far cheaper to burn gas to develop to generate energy than it is to burn diesel. But why is it taking so long to make this particular transition? And then, Minister, just with regards to the gas amendment bill, can you give us some timelines? And I understand that it's going to be going to cabinet, and then from cabinet will come to Parliament for tabling. But can you give us some firm guidelines in terms of when that will actually take place and by when? And then my last question is just with regards to the radioactive waste management fund bill. I recall reading at some stage that some of your developing countries, and I don't know whether South Africa was included in that, but some of your developing countries, in order to generate income, were importing nuclear waste in particular from your developed countries. I want to know whether South Africa was included in that. Have we been one of those particular countries, developing countries, that has been importing nuclear waste? If yes, how was that actually monitored and dealt with? If not, I'm glad that we did not go that particular route. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm done with my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Okay, let's give Honorable Ngosi and followed by Honorable Mufokeng. Now I see the hand of Honorable Chabaleng. Yes, and then followed by Honorable Fasia is the last one. Over to you, Honorable Ngosi. Chabeleng. Yes, I'm able to pronounce it now. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to yourself, the Honorable Minister in the meeting, Honorable Deputy Minister, honorable members, and also the DG and the team from the department. Thank you, Chair. I just have a few questions only. First is that the commitment to reducing dependence on Eskom by expanding private sector involvement in energy production was reaffirmed on the SONA 2025. Therefore, Chair, what is the plan in place for implementing the just energy transition without affecting the country's economic development plans? That is my first question, Chair. Secondly, Chair, one of the most pressing concerns raised during SONA 2025 was on Eskom's financial restructuring. What is the department's clear roadmap or concrete funding plan for Eskom? And Chair, with regard to the gas amendment bill and the radioactive waste management fund bill, I think I am covered on that. The presentation was very clear on that. What I want to get is that when can we expect the draft electricity pricing policy to be published for public comment? And also, Chair, how far is the proactive maintenance at the different plants, and how much more proactive maintenance needs to occur as to increase the energy availability factor? Lastly, Chair, what I wanted to also ask is that while we do acknowledge the work that the department has done in terms of the integrated national electrification plan, access to electricity remains a problem for many townships due to the load reduction, which is caused through electricity theft and municipal debt to Eskom. Chair, what is the department and Eskom doing to reduce the load reduction, as those who pay for the services also get punished? Those are the few questions I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Ngosi. I said Honorable Mufugeng, followed by Honorable Chabuling, and the last one will be Honorable Fasi.
Thank you, Chairperson. And greetings to Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable members, and everyone on the platform. My name is Masitseko Mufugeng, a member of this committee. Chair, my first question, I would like to know, Chairperson, what will be the funding model to implement the IRP? In other words, at which point will Eskom be able to participate in green generation capacity? And also in relation to developing gas-fired power stations, is government going to ensure that Eskom has a stake in any new gas-fired plant to ensure that the country develops experience with regard to gas-fired electricity generation plants, as the country does not have experience in generating electricity from natural gas? And lastly, Chair, I would also like to know the progress thus far with mobilizing private sector investment for the development of the transmission grid, as IPPs will come to stream in the next 12 to 18 months. I thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, let's do as such. Honorable Jabeling.
Honorable Chair and the committee members, thank you, and from the Minister's office, thank you so much for the opportunity for the presentation. I think I wanted to just raise a couple of questions. One is the shutdown of the 3 planned power stations, one being the Hendrina, Camden, and Grootvlei. In totality, these power stations amount to about 4,700 megawatts. And there is a planned shutdown of 4,700 megawatts that is going to be effected in 2025. This is a major concern for us as MK, given the fact that South Africa has already been challenged with the issue of load shedding, as well as the issue regarding currently the load reduction. When For instance, the department comes in and says that they are now moving ahead and they are planning to shut down these power stations particularly. And in its place, there is no discussion as to what will be the equivalent nameplate replacement of the shut down power stations. What are they planning to do in order to replace the capacity that they are removing with its current, equivalent of coal, gas, or new coal, or with nuclear, or with equivalent, which is going to be baseload electricity. So I think we need that clarity first before we could even endorse the current plan to do with the shutdown as well as the complete, closing down of these power stations. Secondly is the issue of the economies in those towns. If you know the history of these power stations, you would know that these are actually town economies. They are based in towns that once you shut down these power stations, those towns are going to suffer. Jobs are going to be affected. The economy is going to be slowed down. And if you know the history, actually the science behind the electricity generation, every megawatt you remove and you shut down in the economy in South Africa affects your GDP directly. Not indirectly, not through other means, it affects it directly. So you're going to have a GDP decline. And the plans that have been presented are not satisfactory with regards to how they are going to mitigate against the loss of these major megawatts, as well as atoms, in the energy space. So that is one key issue that we wanted to bring to the attention. To say, I think before the committee can even move forward, just give us the understanding as to what's going to be done on that issue. The other thing is the issue of the planned expansion on the planned 6,600 megawatts of the planned gas project. It's a lovely project. Bringing in 6,600 megawatts of planned gas is great, but there hasn't been any speak of what comprises of this particular gas. What are we looking at in terms of the gas projects that are currently, the department says that in the finalization stages of adoption, and where is this gas coming in from? If you know the science again of gas can only be either, imported, or we have it as a gas source in South Africa. So far, South Africa does not have its own gas source and gas resources. We are dependent on Mozambique in terms of the imports, and we are dependent on offshore overseas importation of this particular gas. So what are we talking about when we say the 6,600 megawatts? And so far, the Karoo's gas, which is sitting and unexplored and exploited, has not yet even come into line. And even that project would not yet yield results in the next couple of years, even if you were to open up the Karoo with regards to shale gas, etc. So I think maybe the department, through the minister, they could give us some insights as to what is this planned gas, pipeline that is coming in terms of projects on the gas projects that are to do with power, gas to power energy. The other question is, who are these private sector investors, so to say, who are targeted and who have actually been engaged to invest in the transmission infrastructure of South Africa, the current transmission infrastructure plan program, as well as the plan policy around expansion of the transmission infrastructure, particularly for the renewables energy. And I would guess it actually extends beyond just renewable energy projects. What is the name of these companies or these targeted partners? If it is, governments internationally, who are these people? So we just want to know that from, MK point of view. The other question is, how is Eskom under the Department of Energy and Electricity going to ensure that they increase the GDP by 3.5% by the end of the term? That's what the plan says, that they are going to work on a plan to increase the GDP by 3.5%. We just want to know the facts and the details, because it's one thing to say you're going to increase the GDP when we know currently the GDP is actually collapsing below 0.8%. So when you say 3.5, you're talking serious billions, and you're talking almost plus $1 trillion plus with regards to injection of capital into the economy. So can the minister, sort of give us insights on how this plan of the 3.5 increase in the GDP is going to be achieved? The last question, I think, with regards to this is, there is a 5,000 megawatts of planned gas to power, which is almost close to commercial operation. You see the conflict. There is a 5,000 megawatts of planned gas to power, and then there is the 6,600 megawatts of planned gas projects. There's a bit of a confusion there, and I think maybe a bit of clarity would help most of us who are trying to understand where the department is moving to in respect to this particular power, the planning of gas and gas to electricity in this case. The other plan is the gas master plan, renewable energy master plan, the nuclear master plan, as well as the electricity pricing policy review. You know, if we could be provided with insights as to some of these plans, which we know some of them exist. You know, if you know the electricity, if you know about the gas, there is something which was called the GAMP, Gas Utilization Master Plan. And we are completely abandoned the GAMP program, which was the then plan, which is the Gas Utilization Master Plan, and we're coming up with a new gas master plan. On the Renewables Energy Master Plan, I would assume it is still following what the IPP office has been working on, and you're consolidating all the projects under the Renewable Energy Master Plan, or is this a new plan that is going to be added on top of what is existing in the IRP? And the nuclear master plan is similar as we're speaking. What are we talking about the nuclear master plan? You know, are we going to be expanding the plan beyond 2,500 megawatts? And is nuclear going to be opened to become almost at the commercial level, as well as, you know, power station capacity, competing with coal as well as the baseload energy in that space? So yeah, I just wanted to touch on those 3 points, if we can get clarity on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Let's give a chance to Honorable Fasia.
Thanks very much, Chair, and to the department for presenting those 2 presentations at the same time. The first is that, well, I have a few points. The first is around competitive pricing in small markets that can create a merchant industry, right, which we know has the potential to drive prices up. Will there be a price capping measure to ensure effectively that electricity that is supplied at the cheapest possible rate to the end user? I'm very interested, especially because we've always spoken about the regulations and the regulatory framework being some of the challenges, or let me say it like this, that the regulatory framework can be used to alleviate some of those pressures. So that's the first question. The second is about the restructuring of Eskom into the various divisions or the unbundling. The increase or the decrease of electricity prices to make the country's economy more competitive, to remove structural inflation, which increases the cost of doing business, basically in comparison to other countries. And then I'm also very interested in acknowledging or understanding rather the proactive maintenance at those different plants and how much more proactive maintenance needs to occur to increase the energy availability factor. And also maybe lastly to say, Chair, we appreciate the plan that's been put across in terms of some of the policy and legislative work that needs to be done. There's quite a bit that is still needing to go through a number of processes. And I think, Chair, even in our planning as the committee, you can see there's a number of bills that will be coming to us. And we also need to be prepared. And I think part of that also is around taking society on a journey, because this is a very fast-growing industry. We are moving slowly in some ways as the legislative bodies, and that's not abnormal. Legislation in this country and probably the world over as well does take a long time, but we need to ensure that we work at a quick enough pace. Number one, to create the necessary reforms, but number two, to ensure ultimately that we create a conducive environment in which the end user, the citizen, or even small businesses are not the ones who bear the brunt of the burden of funding I would say the national sort of energy mix in that regard. I think there's other ways in which we can cushion that burden. I think that's quite an important point that we need to be considering. But other than that, Chair, yeah, I think there's still stuff that needs to be looked at regarding municipal debt and the electricity pricing and that one on a municipal level in terms of the pricing policy. But I think that's something we've already identified to keep an eye on. And I know it's even in the committee term program, so I won't ask too much related to that. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. And now let's give over to DG.
Chair, thank you very much. Perhaps I could ask DG Jim Bambo, responsible for the nuclear branch, to deal with a set of questions in relation to the nuclear program, including the approach to the build program. And then we'll deal with the remaining questions. Chair, with your permission.
All right. Over to you.
DG Jim Bambo.
Yes, good afternoon, Honorable Chair and Honorable Minister and the Deputy Minister and the members of the committee. And thanks, DG, for the questions. Two questions I will deal with is the question around the 2,500 megawatts of a nuclear program. We are developing this work in terms of the IRP 2019, which is still an IRP that is approved. And we know that the new IRP is still going through the development processes. It has not yet been finalized. So we're working in accordance with the 2019 IRP until such time that IRP then is a new IRP is approved. But that's the context within which we are working on this. But then the honorable member raised the issue around the pace and the scale. But that's the direction which we are following to work on the nuclear new build in accordance with what the IRP provided. That says commence the preparation for this capacity, looking into the pace and the scale that the country can afford. And the work that is currently being done is we form what we call the nuclear implementation program organization, which is coordinating a lot of preparatory work that seeks to make sure that we are busy, prepared in terms of this. And the team is working on a number of deliverables, looking into the feasibility report, which is a key issue that the team is working upon in terms of making sure that we are ready. And the minister pronounced that the minister will be appointing the industry advisory panel that the minister would appoint. And that is part of our preparatory work in terms of that. The minister would, at an appropriate time, then announce the panel. So there is lots of preparatory work that we are doing whilst the minister would appoint an industry advisory panel of experts in that area. Then the other question that was raised is the question around the radioactive waste management fund bill, and the honorable member raised the concern that there's been developed countries that are exporting radioactive waste to developing countries. And the question is whether South Africa has been importing radioactive waste. Our answer is that as South Africa, we have not been importing radioactive waste. Our policy does not allow South Africa to import or export radioactive waste. We manage our radioactive waste in the country. We've got systems in place that manages the waste, and also there is entities, in particular the Radioactive Waste Management Institute is the organization that has got a mandate to manage the radioactive waste on a national basis, and we manage it according to that. DG, may I then request that I hand back to you? I hope I've answered both questions that were related to nuclear.
Thank you very much, DG. Then, Chair, if I may ask Diligence Monday just to deal with the issues that relate to the legislative process. There were issues around the gas bill, the EPP. Diligence Monday, if you can deal with those, please.
Thank you so much, DG. So there was a question firstly from Honorable Paulson on the empowerment of youth and women in the gas infrastructure space. There is provision in the gas master plan that is made in relation to participation of previously disadvantaged groups in the document. And this is something we continue to monitor anyway as we engage with stakeholders and agencies in the space. And then there was also another question from Honorable Paulson still on the Virginia Gas Project and what is its role in relation to the gas bill or the Gas Act. So the gas does not differentiate whether it's a CNG compressed natural gas or liquefied natural gas or helium. It does not differentiate. It just talks to infrastructure in relation to gas, and that's pipelines, that's regasification facilities, that's liquefaction facilities. So helium is also catered for in the same legislation. And then, DG, I think there was a question from Honorable Milam on the liquid fuels master plan. Yes, the three legs or pillars rather of the integrated energy plan are the IRP, the gas master plan, and the liquid fuels master plan. And the department has been doing a background research work. I know research work has been started by the team in regards to the liquid fuels master plan, and it will be streamlined as we work towards the development of the integrated energy plan. And then Honorable Milam, your question again, the question from Honorable Milam on consultation on the gas amendment bill. The gas amendment bill followed the same consultation process that we follow with all the other bills. It was published for public comments in January last year. And during that public comments period, extensive consultations with stakeholders such as the Energy Council, BUSA, and their industry association. And it also then went to NETLEC. And at NETLEC, that's where there's broad consultation with business, labor, and the social sector. So there has been extensive consultations. And there will be, of course, by way of process, further consultations once the bill is before Parliament. And the department always remains available to support Parliament once those processes start. And then I think the last one was Honorable Kosi on the timelines for the publication or publishing the electricity pricing policy. So we've just concluded the NETLEC process, and NETLEC has come back to us with the report, and we are now finalizing internal processes and preparing submissions to Minister for it to follow the approval processes to go to the economic cluster and cabinet for us to request approval to publish, and the document will be published. We are targeting Q1 of 25-26 financial year, and that's basically around April once we've gone to cabinet and received approval to publish for public consultations. I think those were the ones. DG, thank you so much. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. If I can then just deal with some of the other questions, I'm sure Minister will also, the Deputy Minister. I think, Chair, firstly, it's important to say that the closure of the power stations is not an indiscriminate closure. So there's consciousness about the need to ensure that before we even get to closure, we've addressed the replacement baseload capacity that we're decommissioning or closing down. And that's an important point to make because the approach is, and I think the Minister always makes the point that how we approach the renewable question is not at the expense of coal. So on coal, we're looking at, I think the member makes the point around other technologies, including clean coal technologies, including, I think, from the experiences of Japan in particular, but other parts of the world, how we can feed back green ammonia in production of clean energy using our existing coal fleet. So the coal closure plan takes into account the existing capacity that sits within the investments we've made in the coal fleet. It acknowledges that we must reduce the emissions level and the impact that it creates in the environment. But how we do that certainly integrates these elements of the technologies available that reduces the impacts of emissions and allows us to sweat the assets, the investments we've made in those assets, and the natural endowments that the country is disposed of. Having said that, I think it's also important that the counterbalance is that the investments in the renewable energy sector through the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan will continue. So as we pace up on the renewables, the IRP codifies how that transition gets to be managed, including much later, mid-2030 going forward, how we introduce the stock of nuclear that continues to add to the baseload capacity. Perhaps just to add to DDG Mbambo's point, I don't think the intention, maybe the manner in which we presented it may have created that confusion, but the intention is not to go for a 2,500 megawatts once-off procurement of nuclear. It does make the distinction between the optionalities available in terms of small scale SMR, small scale modular reactors, and certainly that 2,500 is based on that decision aid and the scale and pace and affordability for the country. So those considerations will go into how we face the procurement of the nuclear build program. Then, Chair, I think there's questions about the elements of affordability insofar as the universal access program is concerned. I think Minister continuously makes the point that
up your room? Okay,
go. Continues to make the point that the era of course, we're dealing with a historic problem, but the era of double-digit increases on the electricity tariff is gone. We must look at how the operational efficiencies of Eskom can be driven to a point where it begins to reflect in the reduction of the tariff. We must look at the least cost options for how we design our energy supply. Of course, when you say least cost option, that is you have to look at that in terms of the full lifespan cost of both the build program and the operation. So in that context, the least cost option certainly must begin to impact. And then, of course, as I say, the operational issues of Eskom to drive efficiencies so that we can get to energy tariffs that are within affordability thresholds. And then, of course, there's the social netting that we must introduce through the energy pricing policy. When we've done everything to reduce energy prices, there will continue to be that strata of society which battles in terms of affordability. And through the energy pricing policy and the instruments such as the free basic electricity, the inclining block tariff schemes, that were able to create a social net to ensure that both access and affordability is addressed for poorer communities. And then the issues of the gas supply. So indeed, we have to. The point I was making was that you need to bulk up the demand for gas, and the instrument through which we're doing it is firstly through the gas to power program, so that you need to create an aggregate demand for gas that will allow us to look at private sector investments to indeed import an alternative gas supply on a long-term contract, so that you are able to lock them into on a long-term contract, and therefore on the price points which are much more affordable, as opposed to a short-term contract, which means that the price points at which you purchase the gas would be much higher, and then of course impacting the affordability. So that's the work that we're doing around both the Eskom gas to power, working with the industry, so over and above the gas to power program, the industrial gas users, how we lock in and build bulk up that demand, so that the investments can be laid out. And I think the point we must make here is that this is a short-term program, because we must lock down those investments in the next 12 to 18 months, so that the build program can then coincide with when the peak demand for that gas comes online, and when the current supply of gas through Mozambique it reaches its natural endpoint. I mean, there's a point about our domestic gas reserves. I think certainly that's an area we need to be looking at. Of course, it will not help us address the immediacy of gas supply, but certainly in the long range, particularly in respect of the price points at which we secure and use gas into the energy mix, it's important that South Africa does look at exploring its current gas endowments, and where we find those endowments that we're able to extract to the benefit of the South African economy and the people of the people. And then I think, Chair, maybe just as I move towards closure, the issues around the lessons of Komati. I think most certainly we will not risk or put the country at risk and those core communities at risk in the manner in which we've seen the lived experiences of those communities in Komati. And that's why the focus, as I say, is on ensuring that we have the baseload supply before we begin to decommission. And certainly the experiences of Komati in relation to the point I was making earlier around how we transition those communities beyond just what the new opportunities that exist in the renewable energy sector, but broadly speaking, how we create the kind of economic opportunities in those communities to offset what the impacts are in a broad sense in those core communities. Then maybe just on the Eskom, the planned maintenance versus what the horizon looks like for planned maintenance. The summer plan continues to focus on investments into the philosophy maintenance or planned maintenance into the fleet, and at least in the medium-term period, that continues to be the focus. So the absolute focus on philosophy maintenance will continue to be the case for the existing fleet. And I mean, we're beginning to see what that impact has been on the energy availability. So over the past 12 to 18 months, significant investments in philosophy maintenance, and we're beginning to see how the energy availability factor is moving in the right kind of trajectory. Not entirely where it should be, so we need to build a buffer for a sufficient reserve margin, so that when incidents like we had in January happen, that we have a sufficient buffer in terms of a reserve margin to address those. But certainly the focus on planned maintenance will continue into the future. Then just on how we do the decommissioning, or whether we replace on the existing footprints of the power stations to gas. I mean, that is a function of a number of things. I think the principle is that we have these assets which belong to the state, we must maximize those assets to the best interest of the economy. But of course, that's not, I mean, that you have to deal with case by case. So if you're replacing coal for gas, I mean, the issues around the logistics of supply lines and so on that you have to consider. I think the principle certainly is that we must continue to exploit our existing asset base to strengthen our energy security into the future. Yeah, I think the question around the IRP and the liquefied, the IEP and the liquefied gas master plan was dealt with. I think that just want to make sure we've responded. Yeah, I think, Chair, that deals with the questions. Oh, there was an issue about the 6,000 gas and 5,000 gas. I was trying to go back to see where I would have referred to 6,000. I think the figure is we're provisioning for the 5,000 megawatts of gas to come on stream in that window period. So between 2030, when the first phase of the closures happen, the 3 power stations, and that has to happen so that those investments start kicking in around 2028, so that by the time we do the closures of the power stations, the gas comes on. The gas is ready to come on stream. So if I mention 2 figures, I'm not entirely sure where I went wrong, but the principle is the 5,000 megawatts of gas that must act as a base load replacement for the 3 identified power stations. Chair, I think those are the questions. There are some of comments, I think, which we acknowledge, but I think those will address the more direct questions that were placed by members, Chair. Thank you very much.
Chair, if I may, maybe just to add a few, and thanks to honorable members for the questions, and thanks to the colleagues for the responses. Maybe the others is just an area of emphasis, and I think there's 1 or 2 that questions that have fallen through the cracks. I'll try and respond to those. Just to Honorable Paulson, Honorable Thring, and Crown Prince Honorable Chabideng, because I think the questions from Honorable Mayhem have been responded to. I think there's a question that is common, and I'm really paraphrasing how you placed it, on the decommissioning of this power station. So first is that we have nuanced the language, so we're not talking decommissioning, really we're talking shutdown. And the distinction is the following: when you decommission, you completely demolish the site and you rehabilitate it. So there are no opportunities for repurposing going forward. Or else when you shut down, you create an opportunity for repurposing. So we should have made the point that what informs the timelines in relation to the decommissioning is IRP, I think 2019, because that's the applicable one. Until after we approved the latest IRP, as indicated, is before NETLEC, and we've impressed upon NETLEC on the need for that process to be done expeditiously, so that we're able to go to Parliament and I'm sent to Cabinet and then make it public. Without necessarily preempting what that IRP says, is that there are 2 streams of work that we have done. The first one is we have done a socioeconomic impact assessment. Crown Prince, you are right, and Mr. Thring and Paulson, just to do a socioeconomic impact assessment of those coal communities, because the economy is predicated on the exploitation of coal, its conversion to electricity, and of course we've got a live experience of what has happened in Komati. So that study suggests we will come to the portfolio committee. We'll request a chair to come and share with you. I'm not sure if I came to. No, we presented to you, I think, on what the implications are. Essentially, it wipes the province of Mpumalanga the map of the country in economic terms. It's going to cause significant devastation. The direct employment that will be lost there, it's about 33,000. And induced employment over 100,000. But that study of 100,000 was done, I think, by one of the consulting firms in the country, the outfit. I'm not sure whether it's KPMG, but one of those. But the study that were done only focused on the direct and indirect jobs that are connected to ESCOM. So essentially, what are the losses in job numbers from a coal mine that supports a particular power station? We arrive at those figures. And we said that is untenable. So you need to ensure that you ameliorate the impact of that. And then they're assuming that you close. So I did say that you're working on IRP 2019. The second set of work that we are doing outside the socioeconomic impact is, as Honorable Freing and I think Paulson makes the point, and Crown Prince on a comparable nameplate of energy replacement. So what do I mean by that? So if you remove 10 gigawatts of base load, which is coal, and you say I'm going to bring a non-dispatchable intermittent power, like replace it with solar and PV, it's not like for like. So you need to answer the question if you'll still be able to sustain the South African economy. And our conclusion is that we're not necessarily at that stage. Even if you look at the pipeline of the renewable energy projects and the advances in energy storage, you are unlikely going to achieve those levels by 2030 if you work on the timeline of IRP 2019. And that's why the IRP that is before us, of course, I'll bring it to you, but advocates for an extension of life by another 10 years of these power stations. That's 4,800 gigawatt, Honorable Crown Prince referred to, but also addressing the issues of efficiency and addressing the issues of emissions, air quality and CO2 emissions. As interim DG Pillay makes a point, we're in Japan, and in fact, I'm going back now with the Deputy President. We want to finalize that area of work. I met also my counterpart again. We were there in December, and the counterpart Japan minister was here again at the mining Indaba. We are advanced, so want to use their technology on co-firing ammonia. They are already using it at the commercial scale. They are able to reduce the emissions level and also not within the acceptable limits of air quality. So essentially, the point I keep on making, you are not sitting with a coal problem, you are sitting with an emissions problem. And to the extent that you are able to resolve that, I think we will be going that route. So without necessarily preempting, I'm just sharing with you. So the studies suggest that you can close if you can show that you are going to replace with an equivalent source, and also that the impact on the economy there. And that's why that the IRP, it will come formally in relation to the proposed consideration of extension of life by another 10 years. Like I said, you must also resolve the issues of environmental impact. Honorable Freing, you are absolutely correct to make the point that we have been let down on the availability side. ESCOM is resolving that question. I'm confident that when we bring the intention was by February, I now have the revised timeline. It's around the 9th of March. We are going to synchronize Kusile unit number 6. Remember that Kusile is still a construction site, 800 megawatts there, and then we'll bring end of the month from long-term outage, Middle unit number 4, another 800 megawatts. It has been out for, I think, about 8 years as a result of a fire there. So we will be resolving the availability. And I've not yet responded to what is coming from the private sector, that pipeline. I talk on the areas where we've got direct control. I can't come and say to members that we will definitely get so many megawatts from private sector by this date, because it's a function of other externalities that we are not in control of, but we'll take account of the state interventions led by ESCOM. I'm confident when private sector come on stream, those numbers looks healthy, then we're talking a different language in relation to availability and load shedding. And then on affordability, you are right. I think that's a question that's confronting us. And the interim DG is correct. I mean, when I said with ESCOM on the occasion of the annual, the AGM general meeting, I made the point that we have entered a new reality. I think the era of double-digit increases is almost behind us. There are new competitors that are coming. If ESCOM doesn't position itself to compete in a competitive environment, I think it will be decimated. And of course, we can't allow ESCOM to die, because ESCOM is a backstop, is a supplier of last resort. So when all else fail, including private sector interventions, everyone will look at ESCOM to provide that. And hence, ESCOM is going into a new generation capacity. I think is a point there raised by Honorable Bufukeng. You are absolutely right, Honorable Bufukeng. So one of the areas we are doing is ESCOM is entering a new generation capacity, green generation. Clean generation. Yeah, let me make the point, clean generation. But ESCOM has got a problem of a balance sheet problem. So we're designing, if you like, an instrument that will make it possible for private sector to partner with ESCOM. And then we're going to use existing infrastructure. So adjacent to the power stations, we're already starting in Letabo, 70 megawatts, well, to Matimba there in Lepalale. So ESCOM has designed that. So I think they'll add a significant amount of gigawatts in the next 10 years from a clean generation. Of course, we will go to National Treasury to lift the condition that ESCOM, as part of the support, can't do new generation, but the Minister of Finance was clear that it's not an absolute condition. So you have to, if ESCOM makes a case through myself, then we'll be able to lift it. So I'm confident that we should be in a position to address that. Yeah. And then, Honorable Spring, you are right. The advantage is gas diesel is a price point. Gas significantly cheaper. Diesel gas also is compared to diesel and gas. And the emissions are half of that of diesel. So those are the immediate benefit. But of course, you are also exposed to commodity fluctuations, because it will be dollar-based denominated in some instances. I'm talking gas, the LNG, as the point was made here eloquently. We don't have, we are not in a position yet now to talk about existing domestic reserves. I mean, on the one in Virginia, when I spoke to the developers, they said the confirmed reserve can go for another 2 years. I mean, when you build a gas to power stations, you need a reserve that is more than 15, 20 years to justify the capital investment, so that you're able to get your returns that you have computed in the cost of that capital. But yes, maybe on the repurposing of the power stations, well, as the DG makes a point, we're running the field in Pandetamani in Mozambique. They are running dry, so we're exposed. We're going to hit the gas cliff in the next 2.5 years. We're having engagements with Qatar. I initiated that with my peer. We're going to meet with the Algerians, have a conversation there. We're going to meet my peer counterpart in the US. We're reaching out, they've reached out, we have that conversation. The US is important because I think some of the gas prices coming there are attractive. I mean, outside the geopolitics of recent times, I think that there are realities that I think are confronting us. Of course, with the US is the issues of logistics, the time it takes to get here, that will have an impact on the price point. So the quickest that you can do repurposing is if you come through Mozambique, you use the existing infrastructure of Romco. I mean, then you are able to create opportunities for Komati and those power stations that are concentrated in Mpumalanga to connect to Romco. I mean, they are within a radius of 50 kilometers. I mean, that's insignificant in the context of the investment that you are making. But like I said, you are running out of the resource, the molecule, and that's why you're looking for these molecules. And then if you come through Mozambique, you need to regasify it. So you need to build an infrastructure there. The cost of that infrastructure must be passed through into the cost of the molecule. So the numbers must look right. Otherwise, you're going to pass it through to the end consumer. But there's things that we know. If you don't get that, the molecules, 5% of the South Africa's GDP will be wiped out. Sasol and other gas-dependent industries, I think they consume about 60 or 60 petajoules per annum. We're importing about 180 petajoules per annum. 2/3 of that is Sasol for their own use, and just about 40 petajoules comes through the Lily pipeline to the southern parts of the county. And that's why the gas-to-power intervention is important, so that we are not overexposed to Mozambique. So if there's an instability there, like it was the case, and the threat of protesters going to close that facility, we are exposed. So we're better off building our own facilities. It's not in exclusion of, it's not necessarily mutually, they are mutually exclusive. That's the point I'm making. So you can have it there in Mozambique, but have a backstop here at home. Ideally should be here at home, Richards Bay, and that project of 5,000 megawatts of gas to power is important for us to restart, if you like, the issues around the gas generation. And then, yes, the point has been made, I think, by, again, Honorable Mofokeng. We don't have that experience. You're absolutely right, of gas as a fuel source, but I guess the technology with regards to how the conversion to electricity, we've got that experience. We will work with the partners. Those that, I think ideally the ones that give you the molecule should be the one that helps you to build the facility, should be the one that is contracted to work with Eskom on gas to power conversion, so that all the risks across the entire value chain are allocated or distributed between two parties, Eskom and whoever is the preferred partner. If you separate the provision of molecule from the design of that infrastructure for regasification and from the person who will play on the conversion of gas to power, then there are three areas of interface. And at each and every interface, there are risks associated with that. So I think it's going to be a complex transaction if you do it that way, but of course, we then engage with the private sector. And then to Honorable Nkosi, yes, the JET IP, we don't go in with our eyes closed. We're going to, it's driven by sovereign interests. So we'll not just commit to things that undermine our ability to keep the lights on. That's the first prize. And then in keeping the lights on, we understand our obligations to the environment, to the communities in those areas. So the JET IP really, the program is designed by us. So it's not designed by these players, but you are absolutely right there, that it's important that you are able to address it. On the Eskom funding plan, like I said, I mean, it has turned around the corner. Honorable, of course, you have seen the interim results. We are projecting a operating profit of 10 billion. Of course, that will be reinvested back into Eskom. It's insignificant in the context of the totality of the investments that are required. On the generation side, we need 164 billion rands. On the transmission side, we need 440 billion rands. On the distribution side, we need about 62 billion rands. So you can see you are upwards of 1 trillion rands. So 10 billion is insignificant in that context. So that's why you need to design ways of how you are addressing this, the funding issue. On load reduction, I was in, it's our next area of intervention. I've announced these interventions. We have engaged with SALGA, reached agreement. I've gone to municipalities. We started in Limpopo. Already now we have Marule, Elias Mutwale, Tavazimbi. We are working with them. This past Monday, I was in the Free State, again working with the provincial government and all the municipalities, Tolopelo, Topoloko, Maludua, Pupo, Mangaung, Karib, you mentioned them. they are on board. This coming Monday, I'm in the Northwest with the Premier Mokhosi, together with the municipalities, the top 10 debtors, but the appetite is that everyone comes, so we enter with them, engagements with them. So the point is to resolving load reductions. So we've made a proposal. Perhaps we can come to the committee to share with you how that intervention is going. The Crown Prince, yes, the gas issues have been addressed, the economies of power stations, where's the gas coming from? I did say that we're looking to get this supply from the one that the conversation are happening is Qatar, and go to Algeria. They've reached out when we're in Tanzania. When the president went there on the state visit, I'm meeting my counterpart, and I did say that even the Americans are in the equation. So where we get the best price for LNG, I did make the point that we are likely going to find whoever provides the LNG wants to work on the facility, wants to participate in the gas to power, the actual project. It makes sense that we do it that way, but let's allow that the conversation to happen. The increase of GDP 3.5. No, we will not account for the 3.5. All we are making is that government has made an ambition in the MTDP. So our contribution is to make sure that the lines are on. Our contribution is to make sure that we expand transmission to allow for greater investments on new generation capacity. Our intention is to ensure that the coal towns are sustained. We are able to create green jobs in the context of SAREM. And then when we pull all of that together and other interventions that are made by other departments, they'll help us to contribute and reach the 3.5. No, it's not about us reaching that 3.5, Honorable Crown Prince and Fasia, Honorable Fasia, yes, the price of electricity. I think in a competitive market, it will be very difficult to set a price cap, because remember, we've got an independent regulator in the form of NERSA. What we can do is to see how best we leverage the policy instrument to make sure that how you're pushing the poor is such that the impact of the tariff is not as severe. One of the things we're doing, and like I said, we will come to the portfolio committee on how we're ending load reduction, is the intervention we're making behind the meter using new technology, a hybrid of battery and solar. We're doing the 2 villages called Mavete and Madimbo in Musina. Those will be up and running, commissioning. The work starts, it takes us about 5 weeks. So we're going to showcase what's possible. But remember, when we do that, it's not just electrification. Every household will have access to internet connection. We are also doing public lighting. So we're showcasing what's possible. And the costs are extremely competitive. And in that way, the conversation is a different one, because you are exploiting your natural endowments. Thus, the sun is not a function of price fluctuation like coal is or gas is. So essentially, there's predictability on the cost of generation. So you could be able to peg it at some level, but let's allow that exercise to continue. That's a part of the work that we are doing in this space. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. We really appreciate the information that you have given us. I don't know whether it's the legacy hand from Honorable Mwan Chabaleng or it's a new hand. Honorable Chabaleng?
The new hand, Chair.
Okay, follow up. Okay. Okay. You can go on.
Chair, much appreciation for the indulgence. I think I've got some of the answers, even though I was not, directly answered, on the basis that I think, look, Honorable Minister, our advice is from MKP. You need to go back and get the department in order and make sure that what you come to present to us with regards to portfolio is presented on facts and something that we can work with as a hope to take into our people. As public representatives, the things that you present to us as a department For us, it is actually considered to be factual and to be based on something that you're going to be carrying out. So it is quite shocking to learn that some of the presentation that was actually offered was not based on some of the factual accuracy in terms of the information that you're promising. And I'm going to take you back quickly to the slides that I'm referring to when I actually raised the issues of the megawatts of gas that was actually presented, so that we don't talk past each other and, you know, it's made us as MK is making up facts. On the presentation that you delivered, which is on the date of the 19th, says 19 February 2025, says Minister of Electricity and Energy. The main presentation that was started was on page 4, on point, it says several projects from various procurement rounds are in different stages and in their development are as follows. The one says the 21 projects. The other one talks about additional 21 projects, totaling 3,100 megawatts. And then the third point there speaks about 6,660 megawatts of gas to power and battery energy storage are either in the evaluation stages or in the market of being prepared to be released to the market, which I would assume that that was what the DG or DG was referring to. And he says, indeed, they did reflect to that point, and that is the promise that they were based on. But then he then says he doesn't know about the 5,000 megawatts, which in the 5,000 megawatts, if you go to, this was on page number 4 of your presentation on SONA commitments on energy and electricity. On the presentation on page, same presentation on page number 9, where the DG then refutes and says that he does not recognize this particular slide. Again, going back to indicating to you where we found it. It's not our information. You presented this to us. It says that on point number 2 and 3 point, it says consolidate gas, consistent with IRP, gas master plan as the transitional baseload source. On the intervention indicators, it says secure long-term supply agreements, ensuring that we meet the growing demands and protect industries that may rely on gas as a key energy source. On your mid-term targets, Minister, it says that the issuance to market of up to 5,000 megawatts of gas to energy, and 5,000 megawatts is written wrong in energy terminology, but yeah. Issuance to the market of a 5,000 megawatts of gas to energy. And then it says the end term target of your whole ministry's end term. You're looking at the 5,000 megawatts of gas to energy in order to close the commercial operation. Why I'm citing this is that, you know, we can't be made to be given presentations that are incomplete, whereby the presentation talks about one particular plan, but on the other hand, the same presenter, being the DG, then goes and refutes their own presentation and says it was not what they actually had claimed. And going back to the same slide that talks about the contribution of the 3.5%, you know, GDP increase, we were extremely excited, but we are quite now confused when you say that you're not going to own up to that particular claim that when you finish this project, they would continue to actually contribute to our current GDP at a 3.5%. So I think you need to go back to the department and then get the department in line with regards to when they come with information, everything. Remember, we are going to fine comb whatever you present to us. And more than anything else, not to discourage the work, but to encourage the work so that you produce quality product when you bring in these particular processes to us. So, you know, I think there's some discrepancies. We will overlook it at this point, but we are cautioning you to say in the next presentations, let's bed down these things very clearly, because we are not thumb-sucking information. We are based on information that you're providing to us, and we're interrogating it on those bases because we are doing our own monitoring and oversight with regards to the job that we have. You know, the issue of gas, I think, let's go back to the key question of gas. South Africa has gas, proven resources. There's gas in terms of coal bed methane gas that is currently sitting unexplored, unutilized. And that gas currently, if it is explored, it will recover you the huge amount of molecules that you want, whether you want to, as you're saying, you want to buy it from Qatar or you're going to be buying it from Algeria. You should know that the price of gas today is so exorbitant that it is not even feasible to be used in terms of the energy generation from gas to energy or gas to power sources because of the cost of the gas. So as a result, one would caution that do thorough work so that when you come back, you have a much more understanding of what actually needs to be delivered on this thing. South Africa has abundance of gas. You have gas in terms of the coal fields that can be turned into coal bed methane gas. That gas is sitting across the country, including the Lephalale, etc. The second part of it is you've got the shale gas that is currently being unexplored. Then you've got the offshore gas opportunities that should actually by now be finalized in terms of those gas finds and technology that should actually be brought into fore to ensure that we actually secure our gas. So we're not out of projects. The issue is, I think the way we attend to problems becomes problematic. We're not speedy, we're not key, we're not opening up market opportunities, we're not inviting investors, we're not empowering the South African local people in understanding the sector and unlocking it and making sure that it's ready for industrialization. You're talking about production of, for instance, hydrogen. Hydrogen is a byproduct of already a production of energy and electricity, and you know how it is made. If you're going to create that environment, you will still need to go back to creating a base load of gas reserves and gas resources in order to make this available. So I'm not going to talk politics, and I'm just saying that it's quite concerning that the department has not yet got its action into order. By now, we would have expected you, especially as the minority, 40%, party in the current establishment of the GNU, where you're leading the government of national unity, you're not the ruling party anymore. I would have expected you guys to start being serious about your work in government. So get back to the work and the fundamentals and get serious now. We want to see projects coming out. We've already indicated to MK where the opportunities are available for South Africans to start working and getting to hit the ground and running. Gas is everything, you know it. Industrialization of South Africa depends on gas.
In conclusion, Honorable Member, please.
In conclusion, Chair, I would like to thank the presenters, the opportunity for giving us this information. We are just saying that we want to see fruition and getting to the bottom of making sure that this industrialization, the improvement of our gas sovereignty, as well as the securing of our gas integrity as a country is finalized. That is in conclusion. And thank you so much. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, the presenters, as well as the honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Njabele. Then I see the hand of Honorable Mailem. I hope
Thank you, Chair.
The last end.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate you recognizing me. Chairperson, I just want to caution Mr. Nchabaleng because he purports to speak on behalf of the committee. He's speaking on his behalf or his party's behalf. He can't speak on behalf of the committee and issue instructions as if he represents the entire committee. The reason I say this is because the two slides that he refers to, slide 4 and slide 9, are talking to two different things. Slide 4 talks about 6,616 megawatts of gas to power and battery storage being put out for RFP and information purposes. And then slide 9 talks about 5,000 megawatts of gas to power. So the one is a subset of the other. They're not, you can't say, well, the one says 6,000, the other one says 5,000, and they don't align. They do align because the 6,600 includes battery power. I think that's important to note. The second thing is, he's quite right in that we do need to bring projects, and it's projects across the board to market much quicker. I absolutely 100% agree with that. However, we cannot be relying on projects that are unproven. We cannot be relying on projects for which there is no investment at this time. And we certainly cannot be relying on projects that have not yet even gone out to the market. And here I'm talking about the shale gas, for example. It's not a realistic thing to say, well, we must expect that in the short to medium term that the shale gas development will be providing gas that we can utilize in gas to power projects. That's not realistic. That there's a lot of market development and a lot of product development from extraction, from testing to extraction to transportation and distribution. All of that needs to be built out before we can get it to a gas to power perspective. So I think that we need to be realistic in our expectations, and I think we need to be appreciative that the department is making progress in in addressing many of the concerns, and that it does have a plan to deliver on South Africa's energy and electricity needs. That said, it's vital that we see that plan implemented, we see tangible results, and we will be holding this department to account. So I do appreciate the effort that has come in from the department in that regard. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourables. But maybe...
Chairperson, a point of order, please.
Comrade Chabaleng, there is no point of order in the portfolio committee. Please give a person a chance to speak, and then you can raise your hand. And it is the discretion of the chairperson to give another round of hands. Remember, by 4:30, we have to be out of the meeting. There's no over whatever time for the workers to be here. Remember, our meetings, Galuk, used to start at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And today, it is an exceptional day and a separate day because we requested them to get to work. The only thing that I would love to convey to the portfolio committee is that we are coming from different organizations as members here, but when we are a committee or portfolio committee members, we are talking sometimes through the portfolio committee's mandate. So I don't think it's gonna be well for us to, when I speak, I say from the ANC side, as a member of ANC with this, I am just mentioning that because Honorable Chabaleng has just joined us, and maybe she, in fact, is not aware of that. We are members of the committee when we are here coming from the different organizations. Otherwise, I appreciate, and I will always give the honorable members a follow-up questions. So if the minister or the DG is able to just within 3 minutes to come up and clarify a few things that are not clear, because you might as well get that there needs to be clarified few things on this. Thanks.
I'll go.
Yes, Minister.
I think Honorable Milham helps me a lot in making that separation. So the 6,006 is a combination of both battery and gas, and it's made up of 5,000 of gas to power. So it goes without saying that the 1,600 is battery. And he's absolutely correct. We are talking about the 10. So Honorable Crown Prince is absolutely correct. So there are reserves in the country, if you like. But those have not been exploited. So it's important that when we talk about the term, we are able to say that this is what is possible within this period. So the assets are there. They have not yet rather been converted into reserves that they can be monetized. So even if there's an entity that were to make a discovery tomorrow, I can't come to the committee and say we're going to derive the benefit of gas to power in the next 5 years. So that's what we are responding to. What is possible in the short term, in this period of 5 years. The second thing is that talking with industry, we already know what is the price point of the price of gas that the industry is in the position to absorb, that we are able to generate the electricity without placing a lot of burden on the end consumer. I will not make it public because it's a function of the discussion we are having with the various power parties. So we know what is the cost per gigajoule that we are looking for in dollar terms, and also how we are going to ensure that we cushion the South African consumer. So it's a price point we have engaged with the industry. So in my conversation at the G2G level, That's the price point that I have. And of course, when it gets to be contracted, it should be at that level. So I really want to give comfort that we have done our numbers, so we know what is that price point. I don't want to put up the slide, but if you make, with your permission, because an important part, that slide, DG, that talks to the 3.5%. There's no confusion there. So the question is, what is our contribution to meeting the SONA commitments? So the SONA makes a point there. I mean, if you go to that slide, so that is very explicit to the colleagues. So we are talking about our contribution to the realization of 3.5. There is no way that in 5 years, a department, no matter the size of the department, that can grow the economy alone by 3.5%. So we're simply saying that there's an ambition that has been set of 3.5%. Our contribution to ensuring that we get to that 3.5% are the following interventions. So at no point are we making the claim that we will grow the economy by 3.5%. So we're saying that this is a government ambition. It talks to the unemployment levels. It talks to the number of jobs to be created. And then we simply share with the portfolio committee what those interventions are. What I accept to be the next set of conversation, which Honorable Crown Prince raised and Honorable Mayhem raises, is that then come back to us with a level of detail. Of course, we'll not give you a level of detail on each and every aspect at the go. So we'll come in installments to the portfolio committee just on one area. What are we doing with transmission? We'll share with you comprehensively. What are we doing with the load reduction? We'll share with you comprehensively. And I'm sure that it's a work that we can agree to going forward, so that we share with you the work that we are doing. But we welcome these engagements. The critique, they only serve to help us to fashion and position the if you like, the presentation better. So I want to say thank you very much, Chair, to you and the honorable members. We take the criticism in our strides, because I think the critique is meant to enhance the work. And once more, thank you very much, Chair.
Hello? Where's the minister?
We're waiting for you, Chair.
Oh, okay. No, thank you very much, Minister. I think I am happy that you have. If any honorable member is having outstanding issues and questions, he or she is free to write those questions via the secretary and send it to the department or the minister. Thank you very much for that. Any other thing, Secretary, in the agenda?
Yeah, we still have some internal matters that we need to deal with. The revised first term committee program, Chair, and then the outstanding minutes, Chair.
Sure. Okay, flight, whatever the next item. We can excuse the ministers and also the department. And then it's an internal affairs. Let's proceed.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you, Chair.
Take care.
Good job.
Secretary, flight the program.
There we go, Chair. Can I proceed, Chair?
Proceed, Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, we've revised the program somewhat. Now, these changes include next week. We initially had items on for Wednesday the 26th and Friday the 28th. However, as members will recall, in the last meeting, I indicated that some committees in the A group who meets on a Tuesday, they will be undertaking oversight visits next week, like your mineral resources, your science and innovation. So some of our members are sitting in those committees. So they will be undertaking oversight visits. So with the result, we will struggle to have a quorum if we were to schedule meetings next week. So those items we've moved. Those items have been moved to the oversight visit. When we undertake the oversight visit from 24 to 28 March, those are the briefings on SAREN and the gas cliff issue. So the changes is now include. So our next meeting is Wednesday, the 5th of March. And that meeting will deal with the decisions. What is it now? Yeah, NERSA's reasons for its decision relating to NERSA's decision on Eskom's MYPD6 revenue application. So that's for Wednesday, the 5th. The meeting with the Danish parliamentary group will remain from 1 o'clock till 14:30. And then Friday, the 7th. Now, with this item, briefing by the Special Investigative Unit, the SIU, on investigations relating to Eskom. Some of the members attended a meeting by SCOPA last week. So it was resolved that, no, look, let the SIU come and brief the committee on this item as well. So that will be on Friday, the 7th. Wednesday, the 12th, this item is stayed. Update by the DMRE and Eskom on energy efficiency. And then Friday, the 14th, the update on the National Solar Water Heater Program. There is mini plenaries on that Friday, starting at 10 o'clock. So it was agreed that let's start the meeting at 8 o'clock till 9:50, since it's just an update on the Solar Water Heater Program. And the aim is to have that as a virtual meeting. And then on Wednesday, the 19th, update on the processing, the reviewal of the IEP and the progress report on the IEP and IRP. And then progress report by the DMRE. This is still a remaining item as well for Wednesday, the 19th. And then, as I've indicated, 24 to 28 March, the oversight visit. That's it, Chair. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Honorable Mayor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I've raised this on a couple of occasions, and I want to propose a hard date. On Friday, the 21st of March, would it be possible for us to call the Secretariat of the G20 Energy Workstream to give us a presentation on the objectives of that workstream and the planning and logistics around it, so that we are kept informed as the Parliamentary Committee with the direct involvement in that, exactly what is going on. Because at this stage, I don't have an idea at all about the energy workstream, and we're supposed to be very much involved in that. And I think that would be an appropriate time and date to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Maliam, you have forgotten that 21st March is a holiday. So do you want us to be here whilst it's holiday?
Sorry, Chair, I had forgotten. You're quite correct. Well, then I'll leave it in the hands of the committee secretary to find another appropriate date, even if it's next week. I mean, I don't mind doing it next week. Well, I suppose we've got people away. No, that won't work. But I'll leave it in the hands of the secretary to find a date that can be accommodated, Chair.
Okay, yes, Honorable Madam. That's why we are requesting honorable members to be flexible in these date changes of the dates, because there are also other programs that are just coming up in which we cannot avoid those. So I'm happy that you understand it, and also we will give that one to the secretary to look at our program. There will be dates that also might change. There were visitors from Danish honorable members that would love to be joined in the site visit. But what I've said to the secretary, he must also look at the dates and check when they are around Cape Town. because it might cost us in terms of time when they are in Joburg or in other provinces, Northern Cape, etc. But I said we must look at the date and look at the program, and then we can see as the portfolio committee when can we join them. So then there will be sort of additions out of the program. So I'm humbly requesting you to be flexible in allowing those to happen, as Honorable Mylem has already added another item that needs to be discussed by the portfolio committee. Okay, then I would love to get a hand that is saying, okay, going in line with this proposed.
I see the Crown Prince's hand is raised, Chair.
Honorable Fassi?
No, Mr. Nchabileng, Chair.
Oh, okay. I thought it's that legacy. And Mr. Honorable Nchabileng?
Honorable Chair, thank you for the opportunity. Honorable Chair, I just wanted to bring quickly to attention with regards to what happened earlier. Please never allow another member to try and really grandstand on us and try and correct us. Point.
Chairperson.
Not right.
Honorable Hassan, I need to now intervene. Chairperson, we respect you as the chair. You've made a ruling on how that matter was carried out. I think you gave us all a rap on the knuckles around how we must carry out our oversight work and our work as committee members. I'm going to say and suggest, Chair, that we leave it at that and we close on the matter of the committee term program, because if we reopen this, it's going to be a can of worms. So,
No,
Chair, I'm asking you to please rule on the matter as you had already, so that we close it and we can move forward.
No, this is unacceptable. We can't be undermined in front of a portfolio when we are putting up points as a party with regards to that. Mildenham had no right, honorable member, to tell me what I was presenting based on the facts that I was dishing out, and he then goes and answers on behalf of the department. He's not a department official nor an executive, and he should not be allowed to do that. Why? Because you give him indulgence because he's white and I'm black, and when I raise the issue, you don't give me the equal respect. Should never do that.
Honorable Nchabileng, don't start to do that. Because here in the committee, I'm giving every honorable member minutes to say or to talk whatever that they want to talk. But if you want me to set up the times in making sure that each member is going to speak for 2 minutes, that will also be a very, very funny decision. So please, and I don't want any dialogue on this. I've ruled it out and I said that if you've got any other question, you think that they haven't been answered the way that you accepted or you expected it, you can even write a question and via the secretary and it will be answered. Thanks ever so much. Honorable Fasia, your hand was up. I was asking for someone to adopt the program as it has been proposed.
Yes, Chair. I want to make 2 comments. The first is to appreciate Enrico taking the time to rework the program, given the oversight visits that we have next week. In principle, I don't think there's disagreement on the G20 work stream. I would like to appreciate and second Honorable Mylem's suggestion that we find some time to get a full briefing on that. I agree we'll have to first find a date. There may not be right now, but we can work on that. But I think in principle there isn't a disagreement, and therefore I would like to move for the adoption of the updated committee term program, and of course treat it as a working document that may need to change going forward. Thank you.
Honorable Ngos, thank you very much, Honorable Fasia, black or white, but I'm giving honorable members a fair time to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I just second the adoption of the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, honorable members. Secretary, can we move on to the last item?
It's the minutes, Chair. Chair, can I ask Mr. Mylem just to write something and send it via email, please, on that item?
It's fine.
Yeah.
In fact, everybody is expected to do so. when they want some items to be included. And then we will look as members, that is the management committee, when can we put those items in the
Correct, Chair. Sure. Thanks, Chair.
Next item, Secretary.
Yeah, so these are the draft minutes of Wednesday, the 29th of January, briefing by the Auditor General on the audit outcomes of the ESCOM for 23-24, Chair.
How many sets of minutes, Secretary?
It's 2, Chair. 29
Okay.
and 31. This is 29 January.
Okay. Move on.
That's it, Chair.
Secretary, just summarize them. Don't read word by word. And also, you sent them on time, at least.
Yeah, they were sent on time, Chair. Yeah, so as I say, so these were just the, okay, first, the opening remarks, adoption of the agenda and apologies, presentation by the Auditor General, discussions during the meeting, and then consideration and adoption of minutes, 27 and 4 December, and then adjournment at 12:47, Chair.
Any member to adopt the minutes as a true reflection of that day?
Yeah, I'll move to adopt.
Honorable Bapti?
Okay, I'll move to adopt.
Okay, Honorable Bapti is adopting them. Honorable Ngosi?
I move to second adoption.
Thank you very much, honorable members. The second set of minutes?
Where are they now?
31st.
31st, yes, Chair. This was the briefing by ESCOM on the annual report of the 23-24 financial year and consideration and adoption of the first term program. So, yeah, opening remarks, 1, 2, adoption of the agenda and apologies received, 3, presentation by ESCOM, then the discussions, 4.1, introduction by the Minister of Electricity and Energy, Honorable Ramagopa, and then remarks by the chairperson of the ESCOM board, Dr. Nyati, and then the discussions on the ESCOM presentation. And then the consideration and adoption of the first term committee program, and then the resolutions, Chair. The outstanding, responses to questions that was forwarded to members, Chair. We received it and it was forwarded to members. That's it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Any honorable member to accept the minutes of the 31st as a true reflection?
Chair, first adoption.
Honorable, is it Mylem?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair, proposed adoption.
Honorable Mylem, adopt the minutes. Honorable Fase?
I'm happy to second, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. So both the minutes, the one of the 29th and the one of the 31st, have been adopted and seconded. Is there any other thing? Any other thing, Secretary?
No, Chair. Just to reiterate again, Chair. So the committee, we have no meeting scheduled for next week, Chair. Our next meeting is 5 March with NERSA.
Okay, Secretary, we really appreciate that. And then the meeting has been adjourned. Thank you ever so much for joining the meeting, honorable members.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Take care.